Right now, I believe I have a special guest on the line. Wade Rathke, are you there with me?
You know I'm here, Dave. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for calling in this morning, Wade. Good to talk to you, man. Good to talk to you. Well, folks, KNON is showing The Organizer in our KNON Film Fest on Sunday, July 15 at the Texas Theater. Showtime is 2 p.m. We chose the film because it depicts the story of the founding of Acorn and its chief organizer, Wade Rathke. Acorn was an activist group that organized the founding of KNON in 1983. The story in this film is part of the story of KNON. And again, thanks so much for calling in, Wade. Let me ask you, what got you into organizing?
You know, it was part of the times and partly just, unable to control an abiding fiery rage about injustice. I was a child of the 60s in the sense that it was hard to ignore what was happening as I got out of high school in 66 and tried to go briefly to college. You were either part of the solution or you were part of the problem. And first I organized against the war and didn't think I was really connecting with my people on that, and ended up organizing welfare recipients in Massachusetts for a year, and then figured out, hey, we need to broaden the tent. And that's what led me to make an agreement with Welfare Rights and go to Arkansas and start Acorn in 1970.
And why did you choose it as a career? Why'd you stay with it?
I found that I could express my anger and demand for change by helping with what skills I had, people to build organizations so that their voice could be heard, and they could demand change and build power, often using as campaigns issues that they'd experienced for years and years. It was so amazing to find out that finally there was a path I could follow. And Acorn, as you know, Dave, is all about the voice of the people, just as all the stations we helped build were voice of the people stations. So that has always been a fire I've kept banked up and ready to go.
And what did Acorn do? We're going to have a lot of listeners that might not have any idea about Acorn. So what did Acorn do?
From June 18th, 1970 until I left June 2nd of 2008 as founder and chief organizer, we were a multi-issued organization, a membership organization of low and moderate income families. We opened our first offices in Dallas-Fort Worth in 1975, August of 1975. So the organization had a footprint there until 2010 or so. Living wage issues, fighting utility companies, winning neighborhood improvements and community development, fighting banks and predatory lenders, all these issues. And there was a huge Acorn housing counseling program that worked out of Dallas for many, many years through the Acorn Housing Corporation. If there was an issue or interest for our membership, we tried to make it happen. That's how we got involved in KNON as well.
And why did Acorn choose Dallas for an office? What brought you to Dallas?
We founded the organization in Arkansas, and there were a lot of reasons for that. As we started getting more and more attention for the early success of the organization and its fight, and the fact that we were trying to do something different and had a broader, effective, direct action organizing model, not surprisingly, Brother Dave, we got a lot of invitations, and the first one we ever accepted in terms of expanding outside of Arkansas was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, of all places, thanks to, surprisingly, the U.S. Senator at that time, a Democrat, U.S. Senator James Aberest. But after that, we listened more carefully to invitations we were getting that were within easy driving distance between Little Rock and wherever they were, Dallas, Fort Worth,
Fell into that.
5.5 hours. We were on our way. So that was one of the first places we went once we started mending our fences closer to home.
How was Acorn involved in the beginning of KNON? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that? And, we were in the great White House of East Dallas with Acorn. Why did Acorn get involved in starting KNON?
Well, you only have, I don't know how long your show is. You and I could talk about this for a long time, but let's give some credit to Lorenzo Milam, who's often seen as the
Johnny Appleseed.
Godfather of community radio. Lorenzo had been involved in starting a number of path-breaking community radio stations in the 1970s. He had, in fact, invented the whole notion of a pledge drive, which we use in our stations. KNON uses very effectively as well. He wanted to try to build a station not on a shoestring, but build it with the best of equipment. He had a license for 100,000 watts. He called it KCHU, K-C-H-U. There was a locomotive that was the symbol of the station. He was a visionary. He was not a station manager, Dave. And he convinced us. He loved Acorn. We had a show on KCHU every week. He was impressed with what Acorn was doing. He wanted to see if we were willing to manage the station because he couldn't keep up with all the divergent voices. The original notion of community radio was sort of let 1,000 voices bloom. It was sort of an anarchistic thing. It was a beautiful thing without a question, but it cared less for who was listening and more for who was talking. He wanted us to try to put some of our skills into actually making it a voice of the people. The DJs at first didn't want anything to do with that, so he allowed the DJs to vote, and some of his colleagues and right-hand people organized against his wishes, and they soundly voted down Acorn as manager of KCHU. He had come to them and said he essentially couldn't afford to spend any more money. It was not sustainable. People weren't doing the job on pledges. There wasn't underwriting. So the station went dark, Dave, and it was dark for about 8 months until finally I reached out for Terry Andrews, who was the head organizer. He's may rest in peace, was a great organizer. We had certain members on the board of the Agape Foundation. We had a lawyer who was a poverty lawyer who was also with us. We convened everybody who we could still find and said, let's just go ahead and muscle this thing back to life. So the board met. Aquila Smith was there. You know some of these names.
Oh, yeah.
They reconsolidated the board, went to the FCC, filed for a new name change, filed for all the transfers. And then came the problem. The Second Baptist Church and Reverend Criswell, who was the power at that time, didn't read the part of the Ten Commandments about not coveting something of your neighbors. And they had a
Good
station,
way to put it.
They had a license for less than 100,000. What's our current power in KNON?
We're at 55,000 now.
So we could be at 60, right? That was the license number. So they had 60,000. We had 100,000. Because it was dark in that period of 8 months, a year. I can't even remember exactly how long until I was able to, working with Terry and the board, get it reconstituted and back on the air. To go off the air, an existing license can try to poach your numbers and your part of the frequency. And that's what Reverend Criswell, may he rest in peace as well, did. It was a lengthy procedure, and at the end of the day, in order to get KNON back on the air and safe, we had to trade our 100,000 for his 60,000, and that's the way it worked. But from then on, we were able to build the station increasingly. What year did you come on, Dave?
I came on in 87, came on staff in 92. So I remember a lot of that. Were you at the KNON Parade to support the station's battle against the attempt to take our frequency?
I have pictures of it still. I ran into some of the pictures at the archives, Acorn and KNON's archives in University of Wisconsin. Well, it's not the university, the Wisconsin Historical Society in Madison. 20, 25 years ago, that's where we shipped all this stuff. I was not physically there, but believe me, I was on the phone the whole time, Dave. But Dave started as the super salesperson, and now he's built the station he's continued to carry the flag and built it into a powerhouse. I can't tell you how impressed I was. What was that, 2 or 3 years ago? I visited the new station, got to see the old board, and
yeah,
it's a wonderful thing. But yeah.
Gave you the tour over here on Central Expressway. Yep.
I got the tour. I think who knows? We had pictures taken. It was all for the good, and it's just fantastic that KNON now has a film festival and is able to show the organizer. This is not our film. I mean, if you and I did the film, it'd be somewhat different, but there is somebody on a KNON board with a KNON T-shirt in the film. You've probably seen that, Dave, but
yes,
all the listeners will be able to see it as well. It's got KVF footage. But as you say, Acorn has not been, although we've continued to work internationally and we are in 15 countries or so, has not been as active in the United States. It reorganized on a statewide basis in 2010 after I was gone in the face of huge attacks around our effective voter registration work in 2008 for Barack Obama and a bunch of scams that were financed by Breitbart, Andrew Breitbart, and his website, and featured, as you can imagine, on Fox News. But a number of the organizations, including the Texas Organizing Project, which was also a shared tenet of Local 100 and KNON and Texas Acorn, all had offices together for a long time. Now we all have different spaces, but that's the former Texas Acorn's office in Dallas.
Are you still involved with starting community radio stations?
Matter of fact, we went on the air a little more than a year ago with WAMF, Affiliated Media Foundation movement, which you know well as well.
AMFM. Yep.
We only applied for, 100 stations back 20-some years ago. Finally, AMFM, when they opened up the low-power frequencies, was able to get a license here in New Orleans. And we're on the air because we're flat as a pancake. We've got good coverage in the city of New Orleans, even with 100 watts, and that's a wonderful thing. We're managing a station in Greenville, Mississippi, WDSV. We are doing content through AM/FM for a bunch of stations, and we now have an internet radio station, acornradio.org, for all of our international members and projects. And Dave, I'm going to be probably leaning on you for help, because what do I know about all this? But we are also assisting groups and organizing stations in Uganda, going over there to see if we can put one on the air in Kampala, Uganda. So we're trying to work with a lot of low-power stations that are trying to have the same kind of voice of the people impact, and seeing what we can do.
Community radio worldwide. I'm in, Wade. That sounds great. Any advice to somebody wanting to start a community radio or low-power station?
First, you need to just see what's already out there. The windows are not open now, but there are a lot of places that have construction permits, and you and I, Dave, we've been through this, that the spirit is willing, but the resources are weak. Who have a CP, they're on an extension, yet may be having difficulty getting on the air. So if you're interested in starting a community radio station, first, check around and see if there are some construction permits that need some help, or you might be able to join with them and not have that frequency roll back to the FCC, because whatever goes back to the FCC is stuck there for, I'm afraid, quite a while under this current administration.
So,
and that's what we're trying to do.
So there's still are opportunities. There's ways for people to do this. There's ways for the community to get on the air. KNON provides the opportunity here in Dallas in the North Texas area. But if you're listening on our stream or maybe hearing this again in on-demand streaming and you're in a community that you think needs community radio, well, I certainly believe that every community should have a station like KNON. Every community should have an opportunity for the people to come in and play music or discuss the issues of the day, but have a voice.
Absolutely, Dave. That's what you and I have spent a lot of our lifetime making sure of. We're up in a station right now in Oregon. We're going to Seattle to the Grassroots Radio Collaborative meeting to talk to people about how they can pull it together. You know, there was a time, Dave, that we were all mavericks. People weren't sure they wanted to let people like us have a voice. They wanted it just to be pure music. That's changed. I mean, by showing what's possible in KBF, KNON, WAMF, and elsewhere, the world has come more around to us that these things are megaphones. They're platforms for everyone who has a voice to finally be heard, and that matters. So we need to make sure this gets out there. Anybody who answers Dave's call and wants to know how they can do this, don't hesitate to get a hold of Dave or to contact me at wade@chieforganizer.org. Glad to help you any way we can.
Thank you, Wade. I appreciate you calling in this morning. Again, folks, The Organizer is a film about the story of Wade Rathke and Acorn. It's showing Sunday, July 15 at 2 p.m. at the KNON Film Fest at the Texas Theater. The film's not available anywhere else at this time. This will be its only Dallas showing. It has been donated to our film fest, and all ticket sales go to support KNON. So,
right on.
So it's a compelling story. It's an honest approach. It's an inspiration to anyone who's ever trying to affect change for whatever reason. In this post-4th of July morning, it's important we reflect on the meaning of freedom, the importance of all of us participating in a free society, from voting to organizing. Freedom is not free. We must use it or we could lose it. Honor our founding fathers and those in uniform fighting to protect our freedom by participating in freedom. Remember, folks, this is from Wade Rathke's desk that I'll never forget this, sitting there talking to you one day, Wade. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize.
Dave, a pleasure. Good luck on the movie, and I'll be in touch. Maybe I can even help do a Q&A by Skype if you want to do that. But all good work to KNON, the voice of the people.
Thanks for calling in this morning. You have a good day, Wade.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.